so exciting yesterday having so many people in the amphitheater, breaking the record for the Discord chat. Really cool. It's only going to get crazier from here.
Good
Hey,
morning.
FA.
Good morning. I'm really excited to be here. I was just going over the Miro board notes, and I'm very impressed with how we're getting information down. I think it's gonna make having these conversations a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, props to Hardcore if he's listening for spending the time to put it together.
So I understand this is the second official DAO discussion. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, okay. I believe Zombie Shepherd is recording this right now, and I'm also streaming it as well. And so that's going to be on my YouTube channel and also on Twitter. So if anybody just wants to spectate, they can do that. But I'm assuming everybody in here is here to be part of the conversation. So that's awesome.
Yeah, if you are streaming, definitely drop a link. I see Anthony dropped his Twitch link, and then if you got one, definitely drop yours too. Or we're going to be in the DAO meetings channel, and not the weekly hangout. And I'm going to actually go ahead and retire the rarity farming season. Trying to retire that because that is over. There we go. All right, so Dr. Wagme, how you feeling, sir?
Good. It's always
Good
exciting to
morning.
touch base.
Yeah. Is anyone officially leading these meetings?
I'll be able to get us started, and
yeah.
Hefe can help moderate as
Yeah.
well.
Exactly. Perfect.
But while people are getting settled in, I wanted to start this week with kind of like acknowledgments and kudos. There's a lot of amazing things happening in the Imagachi ecosystem, and it's tough to keep up with everything. But I know that I'm constantly inspired by everything that everybody's doing. So like my personal acknowledgments, Jared and iTree have been doing such amazing work from their, like, respectively with Wagme Warriors and Adventure.io. Definitely check them out if you haven't yet. Love the work the Pixelcraft team did on the blog updates. And Hardcore and Time have been working really hard to have tools to help the DAO engage better and to arrange these meetings. And lastly, Mikey J and Notorious BTC for all the work and thought they've been putting into our economy installations and how to be sustainable and effective. And there's so much more than that, but that was what I wanted to get us started with. If anyone else has some kudos, feel free to throw them in the chat. Otherwise, I can get us started a little bit. We'll kind of just setting the stage. We'll kind of do like old business, new business, and then open discussion. I think our big open discussion piece this morning is going to be what's going on with the installations harvesters and what we can do about it as a DAO, how we can support the Pixelcraft team. But we'll try to get through our old business first.
Yeah, cool. And we do have some updates on that I can share once we get to it.
Awesome. Yeah, super helpful to have you here. Let me run old business real fast, see if you have any updates on that end. For the DTF, a couple updates there. So we're still planning to fund Friendless Summers, the 9 Adepts production. There's no update as far as I'm aware from a licensing agreement. Do you have any update from that perspective, Dan?
I think the licensing agreement, from what I've seen from messages with Golden Cross, it is basically ready. I have not personally reviewed it yet, though. These things tend to take a while, but from what I have heard from him, it's basically ready. But I have not personally reviewed it myself. So, but it should be very soon.
Awesome. Well, the plan is to get them their funds that they've been awarded once we have that signed and everything looks okay. So thanks for helping out with that. I know Hefe, you guys in GMI are working on some really awesome onboarding videos, which are either complete or close to completion. So super excited about that. We'll be getting you guys the rest of your funds when that's done. Any update from you?
Yeah, those are actually both done as of yesterday, and now this rest of the May is just going to be promoting them and making sure we get them to the right places. So, I'm pretty excited. I'm impressed, and actually, this has been a challenge, personal challenge for me to step up my game and actually learn some new software in this process. So I've got to get more familiar with Adobe Premiere, and I think my videos and my content in general actually has been elevated by these two videos and doing this project. So I look forward to doing more stuff like this, and probably reformat a lot more of my content from now on because of this. So yeah, thank you for even like giving us the opportunity to create something like that.
You guys are doing amazing work. I should have thrown you in the kudos as well. I think a relationship between DTF and the DAO in general and GMI is going to be really beneficial, as you guys can make really cool things using your talents. So I'm excited, not just for these videos, but what's yet to come. Some other old business. I don't have any updates that I'm aware of. Dan, maybe you know what's up with the DAO Ghost being put into Aave. Is plan still to secure the multi-sig and then do it from that perspective, or were you thinking of getting it over first?
Yeah, we are still planning to transfer it to the extended multisig. Now that Wham Ghost is live, should be a good time to start doing that. Although doing that will bring down everyone's, I don't even know what the API is right now, but it's probably very, very low, like negative or under 1%. But might as well get that done since. But I haven't looked at the liquidity recently on Aave. But we can do that. I will make sure that Golden Cross moves on the KYC process for you guys this week. I think what we were waiting for on our side was final confirmation for who is okay to go forward with it. If there's anyone that's not cool with it, they should just contact Golden Cross, because I have not really been part of that over the last couple weeks. It's been so much dev stuff, so I really I think Golden Cross is kind of handling that.
And then to update the community on that, there was 15 members on the extended DTF multisig, but it became clear that we needed to they need to dox themselves to Pixelcraft essentially to help with KYC and AML requirements with everything moving forward. So we're asking each member individually if they're willing to do that. Once we have those numbers, we can proceed, and we'll be able to fill in the gaps to try to keep it at 15 using people that were like nominated but didn't get the spot. And guiding kind of that decision process is my standard operating procedure document, which I've shared a couple places. I think a lot of people have been helping with that. Thank you to Gadfly for using his lawyer skills to make everything look really good. And the goal is to have 15 people on that multi-sig to be really secure and feel good about it. And then to have a really clear standard operating procedure for moving forward if we need to make adjustments to that multi-sig.
So will you need 15 out of 15 signers to sign off on something, or is there a certain percentage that would need to have to sign off?
11 out of 15.
Yeah,
and my SOP outlines that if it takes, we can't have more than a third of those be people that weren't elected by the DAO, and trying to come up with a way to, how many is okay that it wasn't DAO elected, but it was people that were chosen from the community by the members that were elected. And that 1/3 number seemed like a safe margin, given that it takes 2/3 to vote someone out. So no more than 3 people can be chosen from the community if there's 3 people that were elected that aren't willing to dox to Pixelcraft. So I'll work on heading that this week and have an update by next week's meeting.
A little question on the 2/3. Because a multi-sig transaction will actually need all 11 signers. Shouldn't it just be the threshold of the multi-sig to change someone out? I mean, because you're going to have to get 11 anyway to make a transaction on the multi-sig. Would it make sense to just have it at 11?
Yeah, so the SOP outlines that you use whatever was established with the DAO vote. So
Okay.
for the extended DTF, it's 11, but if there hasn't been an established ratio, then it's 2/3 to vote someone off.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Other old business for me, not too much. The SIG prop for channeling once every 24-hour period, I guess now is old business, sort of. It did not meet quorum. Confounding factors for that are Snapshot didn't capture all the votes available. There was a short voting window and there was no other active votes. So we need to decide as a DAO what we want to do about that. If there was large support, so we go ahead and do it, or if it didn't meet quorum and that's the DAO speaking. I'm one of the few people that don't support it, so I would be interested in hearing from the community.
I'm pretty sure there's some weirdness with Snapshot, because we did submit a new PR to them to update the voting power, and it seems like the voting power was significantly lower than other votes. So we are definitely we're going to investigate and see if it's low because of some issue with Snapshot not capturing all the votes, or if there's another reason. If it's the former, then I think we would just basically calculate what it should have been at that time and go by that. And if that's the case, it probably met quorum and probably exceeded it by quite a bit. And we've submitted a new PR to Snapshot, which I think will fix one of the issues that our dev noticed, but it takes them a little bit of time to review those and push them. So I would say most likely it did reach quorum, even though Snapshot doesn't quite show it.
In regards to the actual SIG prop itself, I'm actually on the Miro board now, just looking at the details of it. It seems like this would be a pretty important proposal, given that it would maybe have some implications for expedited H3 or delayed H3. So it's definitely something that we could probably we'll have to redeploy something like this, right? Like another vote essentially. So maybe we can try and drum up some more awareness around it. I think this is because I'm just reading the little blurb here in the Miro board. It says personal cons are the negative impact I expect on the rental market with the ability to rent a gachi for a 1 to 2 hour period every 48 hours versus a daily rental. And so and then it goes on at the end there. Anticipate this may expedite calls for H3 with decreased gachis on the market available for lending, while the off-market gachis are only being played 1 to 2 hours out of 48. So it's definitely something. I don't know. Is this something we already expanded on in the last discussion, or is it worth expanding on it right here?
We got to decide that as a DAO what we want to do. I mean, the unofficial sentiment check is strongly in favor of assuming it would have met quorum and having Pixelcraft implement it. Coded, my understanding is that you guys would be able to implement that without too much difficulty by release. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we've kind of already discussed it and have a working plan that should work for it. Shouldn't be too hard to implement that.
Well, I think I would move to just accept that it would have met quorum if voting was all working properly and there would have been a longer window. But is there any strong objectors to that?
No, I mean, I'm good with it. I was just wondering if there was a discussion already. It sounds like there was already a discussion around it.
All right. Well, whoever's
if the voting power was registered correctly, the vault would have 3.5 million additional ghost voting power. So if it hit 8.5 million voting power, then it will be 12 million voting power and have passed the quorum with other votes anyways. So it does sound like there's probably lower than normal voting power. Probably not just for the vault, right, Kendo? It's probably others that are also kind of under counted because of, I think could be a subgraph issue or something. trying to get the subgraph and incorrectly, and maybe there was a calculation error somewhere.
Yeah, but I want to be careful setting a precedent for if the vault would have had its votes, then X would have happened. But like you said, Dan, that applies to everyone and all votes, that it was probably undercounted.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's plan in whoever's typing up minutes, and if you can put that out there that we're planning to proceed with this, and if we see large objections from the community otherwise, then we can address it. But I think it's safe probably to assume that we're going to go forward with that implementation.
Yeah. I think there's plenty of other use cases for gotcha lending, not just going to your altar every 24 hours.
We were talking about this during one of the last gotcha spaces about how the rental market's going to get more diversified as these activities for what a gotcha can do also increase.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that is what I have for old business. Does anyone else have any old business that they'd like to bring up or want clarified before we get into new business and open discussion? All right.
I was looking at the
New business.
sorry, last minute. Just a comment. I was looking at the iTraits discussion, and it looks quite impressive with that aspect of the dyes. I thought that was a really good idea. Whoever came up with that, I thought that was really cool. But it seems like there's been a lot of planning around that. That's already been discussed, and there seems to be a solid plan laid out around that. Just looking at the Miro board now, and yeah, it's just a comment. I got no questions there.
Bring up Tommy Gotchi here.
Awesome.
Hello. How's my audio?
Good.
Good morning.
Good.
Hey, good morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I don't know if we the eyes, it's a very detailed and long discussion. I'm not sure if we want to get into that right now. I think it's not super pressing, as we do have quite a bit of time before the traits need to be confirmed. So if there's any other higher priority items, maybe we should go through those first. And then I feel like the eyes should be their entire sub discussion or sub meeting.
Yeah, sounds good. It is quite an extensive discussion. I was looking at the DAO forum there, and I agree.
I definitely want to have that discussion. I just I don't know. I know it's going to go for a while. So
I think Dr. Wagme got kicked off stage there.
Yeah, he said he lost audio.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Back up.
Yeah.
Right, but do we need to talk about bubble ups or respecing?
Well, I think it would be valuable just to kind of bring everybody up to speed what the discussion has been on the DAO forum.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, I will empower you, Tommy, to take that if you can lead discussion on both those, and then also follow up with whatever proposals need to be done.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So I want to start with the respecing. There's been some discussion that came about, started like October last year, kind of thing. There was some sentiment on allowing respecing of spirit points, and there was also discussion that, hey, we need to wait because of rarity farming and existing talk about remapping traits. And now that rarity farming is over, the remapping of traits has been passed, I think it's a good time to kind of continue that conversation. And just a little history, little summary kind of thing is the Gotchi's original points given at summoning are not going to change at all. We're only talking about points that owners have allocated through leveling up XP and aging. Now, the significance of allowing a respect is kind of twofold. One, people have allocated points and kind of made mistakes just through not quite understanding. And then the second thing is, since the trait remapping occurred, owners probably want to change their, tactic of or how they want to empower their gotchi. And so the options that have kind of come up is one, freebie. So just allow gotchi owners to respec. There's one freebie. You can do it whenever you want. And then once it's done, it's done. And Dan, is there any technical issues with that approach?
I think it would probably be okay. I remember we thought about it a little bit, and basically the solution would be to kind of re-roll the VRF, because we've saved the VRF number to the gotchi, I believe. So all we'd have to do is kind of re-roll what the original traits were, and then we would just set the traits back to what those were, and then we would set the number of points that have been used back to 0. So I think on the contract side, it would be doable.
Okay. And then kind of based on what you said, kind of give some insight into the next thing. The next thing, totally separate from what I think we can vote on, is a new mechanic that allows gotchi owners to kind of reallocate their points, kind of respect their points, either through in-game items like a potion or a stone, or maybe a specific token that can also be traded, or even just burn glitter to give the owner an option. That's basically it for the discussions that I've pulled out of the forum.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that, Dame?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to it. It's if that's what the DAO believes is a good game mechanic, then just like kind of aging, it's up to the DAO to suggest and vote on that game mechanic.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and I'm thinking about moving forward. We either vote yes or no on one freebie, and then have a new game mechanic, like a whole totally separate thing. Any discussion on that?
Well,
Yeah, there's 2 traits now. There's the on-chain traits, and then you have the off-chain traits, which are used in game. So you probably want to apply the on-chain traits that would be done on-chain, and then maybe when that trait respec happens, would that also reset the off-chain ones, or would that be another? That could be another in-game item that is spent in the Gotchiverse that does that. It wouldn't necessarily have to be tied to the on-chain event, although it could be.
I mean, I'm just thinking here out loud here with the traits changing. Do we think we anticipate the meta of the game shifting quite frequently, or are there going to be cycles where people prefer one build over another? Because I think that would also play into how people are going to spec their points and how many opportunities they get to respect their points. Maybe this could be tied in. I know Dr. Wagme made a good point about this possibly being tied in with some sort of an Alchemica sync, or possibly, from my perspective, even a glitter sync somehow could be tied into this. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have some thoughts. The interesting thing about it, how would on-chain points kind of influence the in-game points? That's kind of the first question, and then I'd like to talk about FA's statement. What do you think, Dan?
Well, the on-chain points will affect your base traits within the game, and then every level you get in the Gotchiverse, it'll also give you 3 points that you can put towards various attributes of your Gotchi. And so if the on-chain traits were reset, you might want to also reset those skill points that you've allocated in the Gotchiverse. if you're trying to just do a full respec of your gachi.
Well, it makes sense. Makes sense to me, and to what Hefe was saying. An in-game item to allow a player to reset their in-game spec makes complete sense. If it's a potion or a stone or burning glitter or anything of that nature, to me makes sense. And a reason I can think of is if someone all of a sudden kind of wins in a raffle or was able to purchase a high-level wearable, they might want to respec their gachi. There could be on-chain activity that would influence the gameplay of how they want to build their character in the game. And so having a mechanism for respecing kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Definitely. I think we just continue the discussion in the forum, or do we need to make a decision on that? I mean, I think it's a good idea, and if just we need to kind of figure out the various nitty-gritty aspects of it. How much is it going to cost? How often can you do it? Things like that.
Let's continue some of this discussion in the forum, and if you're willing to champion it, that would be great. Tommy, and I don't think we need an immediate answer or proposal for this. I think ongoing discussion and see where we're at with it next week would be appropriate, as well as like trait application and traits in the Gachiverse are still a little ways out, and then there's no rarity farming coming up in the immediate future that we need to have this figured out for. And I want to also limit discussion to around 5 minutes for new business, and then our main discussion to have a little bit longer than that, if you're okay to move on to the bubble ups.
I am perfect. Yeah, I got some distinctions. I can keep kind of monitoring the thread and add a summary of what we got. So yeah, perfect. I'm ready to move on.
Go for it. What do you got on bubble ups?
Yeah, bubble ups. So I wanted to pull out a thread specifically for bubble ups because I kind of thought that it was getting lost, and there kind of two main thoughts on bubble ups. First, I'll give it a little description of this. So Alchemica bubble ups are Alchemica that shows up on Alchemica deposits, and they're not directly related to boosts or boost parcels. So just kind of want to make that distinction. And it bubble ups add a utility to the gameplay, but it forces gachis to go seek out and actually harvest them. And then there's already allocation set in chapter 2. Basically 10% of Alchemica for Pixelcraft is earmarked for bubble ups, dungeons, and other in-game rewards. So essentially, we don't have to do anything, and we can just kind of tease out the frequency and amount that would go to bubble ups that comes from Pixelcraft's allocation. There was a interesting little sentence in there that it basically got this kind of kicked off for me. Pixelcraft's, and here it is in chapter 2. Pixelcraft's gameplay vesting release allocation that will support Alchemica releases, although the Aavegotchi DAO can also vote to supplement this amount, and this amount has to do with this bubble ups, dungeons, and other in-game rewards. And so the general thinking or the general questions I wanted to kind of propose for discussion is, what's the idea of these bubble ups? I just want to ask that to Dan and help us understand about bubble ups and how you see it as a gameplay in the Gachiverse.
Yeah, I think originally the idea was proposed. Oh, we lost Dr. Wagme again. It was proposed because of the boosts discussion, and it's kind of a compromise where parcels that are surrounded by Alchemica, which have higher boosts, but didn't actually get the boost that they kind of expected, would occasionally get these bubble ups of Alchemica that would spawn near the parcel. So if they have a gachi that's on the parcel, they would be more likely to see it and faster to get it. And that's the idea of what a bubble up is. The frequency, how often it should happen. It could be a thing that happens very rarely. It could be fairly often. It could be like a big event that everyone knows about, or it could be something that is kind of happening frequently and just kind of pops up and comes to the surface all the time, but in smaller quantities. And one thing I would say before we confirm or really get too deep into the discussion is it's going to be interesting to see how fast and how much Alchemica is dropping every day in the Gachiverse. Once the alchemical altars are online, there's channeling, and then eventually once we have harvesters and reservoirs. And I would kind of view bubbling up as a potential supplement to that. If we think, well, there should be more Alchemica popping up, and there's not. We need some more Alchemica. Boosts would, or the bubble ups would be a good place to start. Like if we as Pixelcraft or as a DAO felt like there's really not enough Alchemica sprouting up at any point, the first place we would go would be bubble ups, because that's kind of the first mechanic that we could start. The second would be, okay, we're just gonna drop more Alchemica randomly throughout the game, but the first line that we would go towards would be the bubble ups.
I
Yeah, that
really,
was my understanding. Is kind of a supplemental. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I really like the idea of doing the intermittent, almost like it's almost like a little event that happens in the Gachiverse. You know, talking to Nyan Kong, he had brought up an interesting point at one Gachi space where he wanted our opinion on how we would feel about these occasional world events that would happen in the Gachiverse. And you know, maybe we can even build some lore around that. You know, maybe there's some unshaky ground underneath the Gachiverse, and there's pockets of Alchemica that occasionally get released. You know, it could really tie in well. I think if we do them intermittently and as needed, like you're saying, it could be tied in very well with the you know, current storyline.
There's another cool idea that we could actually monitor on-chain events, and like the bubble ups could happen based on when those on-chain events happen. So if there's a big liquidation on Aave, like there could be a bubble up happen somewhere in the Gachiverse, or if there's like some cool other sort of event that we wanted to listen to on chain, we could easily set up listeners for those events and then take action within the Gachiverse, and something could happen. So that would be a kind of a fun way to set it up, and then it would just always be like that. It would happen until we turned it off. It would be pretty cool.
I think it's brilliant. Maybe an infrequent event would be sacrificing a gachi. I'm just saying that would be interesting. You know, maybe Alchemica.
Or maybe a gachi is summoned as well. Yeah, summoned or sacrificed.
Like, I'm gonna make a note. There's also some added benefit for bubble ups for estates is an idea. So if an estate's built and walled off and there's Alchemica deposits inside their estate, that's bubble ups that are available specifically for that owner. And so I think it adds a little bit of a bonus for estates, a little bit of motivation. I thought that was pretty cool. And so generally speaking, we can do nothing and just kind of tease out these kind of on-chain events that might cause bubble ups, which I think is fascinating. Or we could talk about what are the metrics to determine when a bubble up should happen, even though it happens on a random kind of like if the flow of Alchemica isn't happening, how would it be supplemented? I think that's future discussion. We can have that in the DAO. And then the kind of the last thing I wanted to, or actually two things I want to talk about is, should we even start discussing the difference between bubble ups in the Citadel opposed to the grid, since the grid hasn't even, there's no schedule for that. Personally, I would think the grid would get more bubble ups just because there's more risk opposed to the Citadel. Any thoughts of that?
There
Or is it just too?
will, yeah,
Or is it
there
just too early?
yeah, there. It's a little bit early, but there's going to be overall more boosting in the grid because a lot of the parcels, unlike the Citadel, where a parcel is surrounded by the Alchemica, there might actually be, and will likely, very, very likely be parcels in the grid that are completely covered in Alchemica. So they will have a higher boost to begin with, because right now all the parcels in the Citadel they're surrounded on all four sides, but they don't have Alchemica under them. But in the grid, if you get to a place like the Forest of Fud, there's potential that they'll actually be literally underneath the parcel. So you'll have a lot more boosts. So I'm not totally sure we will need the bubble ups in the grid. But definitely worth potentially exploring it there.
Oh, okay. Now I got FOMO. I'm like, now I want grid properties. Okay. And so I think the last thing was, should we start discussing supplemental from the DAO? Just earmark a percentage of crafting, percentage of crafting, what do you want to call it? And it's not really fee or allocation to bubble ups. It's kind of a main discussion because that would definitely spark a vote. Anybody have any thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really fun idea. I'd be interested in feedback from the community on that, with kind of like a data driven, like this percent would be a good starting point, and knowing that we could modify it with time.
Yeah, because I like it because it's flexible. If there's a lot of crafting, there's going to be a lot of alchemica, and therefore, whatever the percentage is. But if there's not a lot of crafting, then it'd be a lower percentage. So it's flexible opposed to saying, 100,000 of this and 50,000 of that, and it's going to be, every other week, and instead of trying to nail down those numbers, because that'll never be correct.
And one concern for me is, I think bubble up Alchemica is going to put pretty good sell pressure on Alchemica pricing. I think this is likely to be collected by scholars and then sold on the market versus other uses, like using it for DEX liquidity. So I would want to be careful and be conservative with dedicating that to bubble ups.
Oh yeah, totally agree. The way I see the bubble ups is just kind of extra gameplay that to kind of motivate the open world aspect of it. Like, oh hey, today I'm going to go check all of the Alchemica deposits just to go see. It's like, oh, there was one kek in this big. Hey, I made a kek. Opposed to a flooding event. Yeah, I totally agree. Definitely. Yeah, getting a percentage is very important. Getting the correct percentage.
But if you can help drive ongoing conversation in the DAO forums, might move on. I know a lot of people want the big discussion to be around installations harvesters. That last piece of new business, just kind of keeping the community in the loop, is
I think totally.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think totally agree. Totally move on.
We've talked about transitioning from staking Ghost for friends to staking Ghost for glitter. This needs a lot of thought, and if we're eliminating friends, it would make sense that the friends experts and friends task force would be helpful in proposing like what that would look like. So I've been working with a couple members of the friends task force to put together a model for how we could transition, what amount of friends we would give to each liquidity pool, and then also how to value glitter using the cost of raffle tickets essentially as a floor value for glitter. So it's a pretty intensive proposal and work, but look for some discussion on that in the DAO forums over the next week, as we'll need a lot of feedback and big brains to get this right. Any feedback or thoughts on that before we move on to the big discussion?
One thing about I mentioned just a second ago, should the DAO provide liquidity to DEXs? One thing we just developed a very simple contract, because one of our issues is we want to provide liquidity on the DEX with all the crafted Alchemica, but it's pretty annoying to have to do multi-sig transactions every time we want to do add to QuickSwap or whatever. So we've came up with a little contract. It only has a couple functions. One is approving Alchemica to be spent by the QuickSwap router, and the other one is adding liquidity or removing liquidity, and the final one is sending the Alchemica back to the owner of this contract, and the contract is non-upgradable. So we're going to be deploying that probably next week, and hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit more liquidity on the DEXs. And so if the DAO would like that as well, it'd be pretty easy to set that up for the DAO as well. It would be basically all the DAO. All we need to do is give permission to the contract. We'd send the tokens to the contract. Contract would give permissions to QuickSwap to add or remove liquidity, and then anyone, basically the owner or whoever we wanted, you could have someone else managing liquidity without worrying that it would be transferred away by whoever's managing it. It should be pretty helpful. And as far as the glitter, definitely look, we have a lot of thoughts on that as well. There was a small discussion in the Friends task force as well the other day about basically which pairs would we prefer to incentivize. We have not. There's been no discussion on the price of one glitter. Although I've done some initial calculations on it, but I'm very curious to hear what your thoughts are on it as well, Dr. Wagner, and what you guys have come up with. So I definitely think we can have a good discussion on that in the DAO forum next week. And we definitely want to get glitter, if possible, have it live before the 18th, and basically have a good outlet for all the new Alchemica that's going to be coming online.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited about that discussion. I'm literally getting paged away to see patients, so I'm going to have to hand all this over. I appreciate everybody's conversations on it, and we're going to open up conversation to the installations, Alchemica, and Notorious BTC, and all those discussions. So thanks, guys. I'll touch base later.
Great. Thanks, Doctor.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that being said, what's the next topic we should be, I guess, moving on to?
So here we got Notorious BTC coming on.
Right on.
And I think we're going to talk about the installations now.
Excellent. Hey, Notorious
hey guys,
BTC.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, good morning.
Yep, hey.
Cool, good morning everyone. It's afternoon here. Yeah, I wanted to kick off the discussion on the harvester situation with a bit like a theory that I've been looking at. So I just wrote this up a little bit earlier. I first want to open though and say I regret only discovering this like now. I've been quite busy in real life and everything is kind of coming together right now. Towards the end, I see this and I'm bringing it up a bit late, so I do apologize for that. And yeah, anyway, so the first question I'm really asking myself is, what is going to make this gameplay like the most fun and addicting? As we've seen with like these play to earn models, the end game for these tokens is always 0, right? So Aavegotchi has an opportunity here to be play and earn, wherein the very game we're playing is fun enough to attract players, regardless of the financial incentive. So this is being worked on with regards to the PvP and world environment, which is great, but we can also bring a certain level of fun and strategy to the farming too. So I was thinking like, what makes a game fun? And that to me is player choice and non-linear progression. So games with predictable path to victory, where one strategy is superior from every angle, those games quickly become boring. So I was looking at the farming aspect specifically for the game, and the current gameplay model that we're looking at clearly shows the path to victory is to simply fill your land with as many low-level harvesters as possible. And past level 3, maybe 4, there's very little incentive to progress. So what we'll see is a world filled with row upon row of the same low-level harvesters, which leaves little space for designing your land, as every tile is reserved for farming. And I don't think that's very fun. And then if we swing the pendulum the other extreme, that means you would build as few harvesters as possible and level them to level 9 as quickly as possible. Right? The yield of the level 9s would be vastly superior, and the land would be severely capped as to how many installations you can build per resource. So the logical path of progression is just to build and level up everything. And there really isn't much decision-making process going on here either. The one benefit to that, though, is there's now parcels you have some spare space to build things like aesthetic pieces, which, as an aside, would be a great alchemical sink, as well as defenses and things. So the thing here to really look at, from my perspective, is how to find the balance in between, right? Like the way I see it, a good game design ought to have players really struggling to find that perfect choice. So with World of Warcraft, what made it so fun was that you could build your talent trees out a number of ways and still be awesome, right? There were certain core talents you needed, but the finesse came down to the player preference. So what we need are these certain levers we can play with that would produce different outcomes based on player preference. And we've already been discussing this, in the DAO. I just kind of wanted to open this up with this kind of theory that I was thinking in my mind. So these levers are really the important thing to look at here. Like, what are the different elements we can toggle and work with to create different results? And with Avagachi, we also have the added layer of complexity that, real money's at play here. So like in a normal video game, the end result is the player making ridiculous yields, which that's not ideal, because when we have a real economy here, if everyone's making just crazy yields, well, then everything's going to crash to zero. So that's just kind of what I was opening with. And then I started thinking about, okay, what type of different players are we going to see in the game here? Like, what are the different archetypes of who we might see enjoying the farming aspect? So on one end, we have like the passive slow builder. And this player is like the equivalent of I see it like the freemium phone game user who never really buys a single thing. They don't mind building slowly, and they wait for the building queues to complete. They don't mind that their harvesters are slow, and they're really only willing to upgrade as soon as they've harvested the alchemica themselves, right? So they're maybe selling a portion of their yield, and they're just like slowly grinding higher, but not really racing to the end. And their mission statement, if you will, is like slow and steady wins the race. And then on the other end, we have the aggressive empire builder, right? And this player has no problem investing outside capital into the ecosystem. So they want to get ahead as quickly as possible. And so they build, they upgrade, they reinvest their capital, and glitter to them is going to be the invaluable resource, as it gives them that edge to getting ahead, right? They're not really selling anything now, and they're heavily reinvesting in the hope of a higher yield tomorrow. So the good game should allow both of these play styles and everyone in between to flourish. Yeah, so I just wanted to open that up and share that little bit and look at the different levers that we have at play and the different options. I see Mikey J had done something with a different output where we look at the yield actually increasing for each level is one different strategy we can look at.
Yeah, I'm actually here on stage. If I can do a little TLDR on that for anyone who hasn't read it, if that's okay.
Yeah, please do.
Perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, hey friends, thanks for having me. I'm a little under the weather, so if sound like I'm in a fishing bowl, that's why. So yeah, I really like everything Notorious was saying, and I think that speaks a lot to the gameplay fun aspect. What I was looking at and posting was just purely from a financial aspect. What would a rational player do? Because I think ultimately, maybe not everybody will play the optimal strategy from the beginning, but I think, word will spread quickly. And I do think that very quickly people will realize that the overwhelmingly best strategy, there is one optimal strategy, which is basically to fill up as much real estate as you can grab with level one harvesters, like Notorious said. So the main issue I have with this, or I wouldn't say the main issue, but the other issue to consider is that we all sort of have acknowledged how important the glitter token is to the overall economy of the Gotchiverse. And the utility of glitter seems to me is very closely tied to the utility of leveling up your installations. And the Harvester, I would assume, is going to be the most plentiful installation in the Gotchiverse. So the only thing that's really, at this point, that's really going to incentivize players to level up their Harvesters is when they run out of land space, and maybe when land prices for them to buy new land are too high. It just seems to me that that's a long way off, that if we're waiting for all lands to be filled to the brim with L1 Harvesters before people look to start upgrading, it just poses short-term issues for glitter that could lead to long-term economic issues. So, the reasoning behind this is basically because the current design of the Harvesters is such that each Harvester upgrade gives you a diminishing return. For every one Alchemica you put in, you get a little less yield improvement on each upgrade. And this is the core reason why you would never want to upgrade any Harvesters currently unless you were completely out of space. You can certainly close this gap by making that jump a little less severe, but as long as the ROI is decreasing, you're always going to be in the same position to some degree. So, one idea that I posted was to instead kind of flip that equation and have the yield increase with each level, but you would really have that block time as being the counterbalance to that. So instead of, if you were to upgrade a Harvester to a new level, it might mean you're making a short-term sacrifice, but in the long term, you would realize a higher ROI. So, I'm going to encourage everyone to look at kind of the charts I posted. It's a little hard just to explain without looking at the numbers.
You have that chart, like that one chart that you, that you could share with?
Yeah, actually, I'll just post it in the thread here and the discussion. Yeah, so basically what you're looking at is, let's say you invested one FUD into either crafting a new Harvester or upgrading a Harvester. This shows you how many FUD you would have after so many months. So if you look at the bottom chart, that's what we have currently. So currently, if you craft an L1, invest one FUD in it, you have 21 FUD. Now, just to be clear, this isn't your real yield because you still have spillover. Obviously, you still spent money on a reservoir, you still spent money on a parcel. So I wouldn't consider this as you truly realize this, but these at least shows you relative yields. So where you would have 21 FUD at the end of 12 months for an L1 Harvester, if you took the same one FUD and you upgraded an L1 to an L2, instead of building a new one, it's basically almost half as good of an investment. So, and you can see it just kind of spirals. And there's never a point where it becomes a better investment. And there's never a point where, boy, if instead of building that new L1, I had upgraded my L3 to an L4, I would have more money at some point. It's always, no matter what time frame you look at, it's always a worse investment. If you look at the top chart, which would be kind of what I would see as being one way we could resolve this, is by creating more of an incentive program that says, okay, now if I upgrade an L3 to an L4, at month 4, I'm about break even. So if I'm sitting here and I have X amount of Alchemica to spend, and I need to decide, am I going to craft new L1s, or am I going to upgrade an L3 to an L4? My break even on those two decisions, the outcome is around month 4, right? And then the higher level that it gets up, the longer you have to wait to realize a return on your investment. So this creates a situation where there's not one optimal strategy. The strategy really depends on your own view of the market and your own time value of money calculation. And it also incentivizes players, rewards players with higher returns who make long-term investments. And so, like I said in the thread, this is just one option. I think there's other options, such as limiting how fast you can build out L1 harvesters. One way to do that might be to tie the total number of harvesters you can build to the level of the maker, rather than setting it fixed as fixed to the size of the parcel. So that way, yeah, you might be able to build out 14 or 15 L1s, but at some point you're going to need to level up your maker if you want to build out more L1s. And that's just another way of basically adding cost to the L1 harvester, which is, so it's one way or another, you're going to build in that cost, whether it's doing it just in terms of the harvester yields and cost, or whether it's in terms of, adding it through some other mechanic with another installation.
I like
so that's pretty much the TLDR.
I like that idea that of adding the extra cost and also adding an incentive. You presented them as two different ideas, but these opposing forces could add that extra layer of prevent this linear progression, like you're seeing Notorious BTC, and have a little bit of more strategy involved around this. One idea I had, which kind of ties in with this, with opposing forces, is these are machines, right? These harvesters are machines, and machines, they wear down and they break. They need to be maintained. And if it's a cheaper machine, like a level 1 harvester, maybe requires more maintenance. Maybe requires some. Maybe you got to spend glitter on it, or you gotta, you got to do some sort of function to repair it. Maybe that costs a little bit of alchemica as a sink, and maybe a level 8 or 9 harvester is more robust, and maybe it doesn't break as often, and maybe it can provide a more reliable yield over time. Whereas, there is already a pattern with the lower level harvester having an unpredictable yield with the leakage and, the wider radius. I guess actually, no, that's channeling, but the leakage would definitely be a lot more, which is one aspect. But then also the lower. Sorry, go ahead.
Just jump in there. The spillover is a property of the reservoir.
Yes. Okay.
So that doesn't come into play. However, you bring up a good point in that another potential solution that came to mind was, if you, now maybe this is too big a change, but if you combine the harvester and the reservoir, so that basically the spillover property was tied also to the harvester. The spillover property, to me, gives a lot of incentive to upgrade, but because it benefits all of the harvesters, it does sort of create a feedback loop where you create more low-level harvesters. But yeah, sorry, I'll let you continue.
Yeah, no, it's a good point that you make there. And I think we have to consider these opposing forces, and also keep in mind that maybe introducing some uncertainty into this like progression might be a good thing. Like we have like an RNG window for rolling, for surveying land. Should there be like an RNG for like a range for what your harvester can produce? Where right now it's kind of a more fixed thing. It could be a little bit more unpredictable when you're building your harvester. There's an RNG process, and that determines for a level 1 within what range you'd be able to produce. And say you happen to fall in the lower range, well, you might change your strategy now, and you might want to add that extra harvester. Or maybe you lucked out and it's on the higher end of that range for that level of harvester, and now maybe you might not build that extra harvester because you're like, well, it's providing the yield beyond what I expected.
One criticism I hear a lot of Avagachi is that people, typically investor types, they're looking at investing into the ecosystem, and they have a hard time kind of calculating a fixed ROI. Like they want to basically know, if I invest $1,000, what's my ROI going to be over when am I going to recoup my costs? And every time we add in random like RNG, basically it just makes that calculation harder for them, and there is a cost of having too much unpredictability in the ecosystem, because we already have Avagachis, which you get the portal, the parcel has the VRF. So I would be a little concerned adding in too much randomness with the kind of the ROI calculation will just make it a bit more unattractive for those types. Not that those are not the only types we would want to focus on, but since this is an NFT game, there's real money involved. It's worth considering that the more complexity we add to this type of calculation. Just the more it kind of turns off a certain type of player.
That's a good point. We should be considerate
one-
of everyone. Yeah.
So, Mikey J, you have the following. You could achieve the above with the following recipe, and I'll just post the recipe. Do you have any other recipes that you've come up with that would fit your criteria here?
Yeah. So the I posted the link to my Google sheet that this is from in the DAO discussion thread, and that's actually like basically a reverse calculator. So we can put in, the ROI curve. We could put in the upfront cost. Basically, we could scale the model. And I didn't cross-check this against, emission rates and how long would it take to fill up, like all the, and balanced against other installations. I really didn't go through all that.
Yeah.
This was more just to see, like, would this kind of shape of ROI model make sense, or would this be something we would want in the gameplay? And then from there, by changing the shape of how steeply, for example, I figured at about a year, you should do a little better with a level 9, upgrading from a level 8 to a level 9 than building a new level 1. That seems like, so the break even on that decision is about 7 to 8 months. But, we might decide, if we decided, oh, okay, well, maybe 2 years should be the break even on that decision, or whatever. We can change, make the numbers fit. But to me, the innovation that's key in this version is the increasing ROI. Of course, that's the carrot, and then the stick is the build time and the upfront cost. So to me, right now, there's a lot of stick and not a lot of carrot. And if I may say one other thing, the reveal of the maker actually kind of exacerbates the issue, because that's even more of a disincentive to upgrade installations. So I just feel like overall, like a little more carrot and a little less stick would create a more balanced decision where not everyone makes the same decision, because that is kind of almost just like a zero sum. Maybe zero sum's not the right expression, but if you create a strategy where there's a clear optimal strategy, then it's like playing blackjack or video poker. Everyone's going to use the same strategy, and if everyone uses the same strategy, again, eventually land scarcity could take care of this. And that was something some people brought up. Well, when land fills up, you'll have to upgrade, and that is true. But I mean, do we really want to launch the game and have every parcel available filled up with L1s, and then people waiting for new parcels to be released, and then those get filled up with L1s? Like, how long are we going to be waiting until people want to actually use glitter? Would be my concern. And then what would be the long-term ramifications of that scenario?
I have one
I think
question.
those are definitely valid points.
The question is, so how much stick is appropriate to kind of force people into the grid to actually make big gains? So maybe the Citadel's safe and the gains are not, abundant, and it forces people to the grid to go to full degen.
Well, I mean, the game is going to be live soon, and the grid is still fairly far off. So I think if we want to make sure we get the numbers right for the Citadel, because that's going to be how the majority of players in the next few months or half a year will get to know the ecosystem. So I think we want to probably get it right for the Citadel, and then continue that success into the grid. I wouldn't say I don't want to rely on the grid to fix like mistakes that we have in the Citadel.
I
So
was just thinking overabundance of Alchemica in order to entice people to come into the game. Whenever grid opens up, then it's like, super abundance, even though it's higher risk. And I'm just wondering, the question is, do we need to kind of take the whole ecosystem into account for the harvesting and reservoirs now, or that'll take care of itself in the future?
Well, I think we definitely want to get the core game loop right and proper. One thing that I think it was Notorious BTC was what kind of struck me was that ignoring all the economic side of it, just we initially did think we kind of knew with our numbers that level 4 or 5 might be optimal, but at the same time we did feel like there was a certain type of player that would go for level 8, level 9 because they wanted to maximize their glitter output as soon as possible and basically be glitter. We call them glitter maxis. But I mean, it does go a little bit against the game in the sense that what would we rather see all over the game? Would we rather see a bunch of level 4s or would we rather see a bunch of level 9s? And so in that aspect, from a gamer's perspective, people want to feel the sense of completion when they want to feel like their parcel is complete because they were able to get a level 9. Now, there's a caveat, which is I think a humble owner, you can forget that. You're not going to get a level 9. I'm sorry. Because literally, there's not enough alchemica in a humble parcel to get a level 9. Even if we severely nerfed the price of it, which we probably wouldn't want to do too much, but even so, it's most likely not. You're not going to be getting a level 9 altar on your humble parcel. Now on a spacious, it would be much more likely, and probably would be if we're searching for a goal. I think it would be a good goal to have spacious owners would be trying to get a level 9 altar, level 9 harvester, reservoir, whatever on their parcel. I think that would probably feel fairly satisfying.
If I could say one thing about that point, so right now the limits on harvesters, they scale evenly according to the amount of alchemica available, right? So a humble parcel owner has the same constraints. They can build. They've got, they can build 4 harvesters, and then the spacious can build 128. So what's that, 32 times as much? But the spacious owner has 32 times the alchemica to harvest. So that scale should be roughly equivalent. In other words, maybe a humble parcel would have would max out at 1 L9 harvester, and then maybe a spacious parcel would max out at whatever the multiple was. So that scale really should be pretty even. And in the scenario that we're talking about here with the increasing returns, it wouldn't really matter. It would affect everyone equally. And the humble parcel owner would be faced with the same decision as the spacious parcel owner. It would just be a matter of how many they build, because of the size of the land.
Well, we'd have to severely reduce the amount, especially for the altar, and which could be done, but we are about 10 days away from putting out altars. So here we did spend the weekend and cracked out on a potential other model for harvesters. We haven't really a little bit of context. We internally we have quite a fairly sophisticated simulator for calculating the various ROIs with a bunch of different installations on it. The harvester, the which level, how many, the altar, and all that. And this is a different model, and I'll just explain it real quick so you guys have a little bit more context. So we got harvester level. Alternate cost is basically the potentially new model or a new idea. Published cost is what it currently is. Alternate rate would be the new rate that it would be per day. Published rate is what it currently is. Days to recoup is basically how long it would take you to get your money back. Obviously, it's just the cost divided by the rate. And then the published data, DTR, is the published days to recoup, basically how long it would take you with the current numbers. And so an idea I had was, there's a lot of ideas in this. We went through a lot of variations on it. It's what I discovered, that it's very difficult to have both a high initial rate for a level 1 harvester and then an even higher, more efficient rate for a level 9 harvester. If the capital efficiency of every level gets better and better with each level, it becomes very, very hard to have a reasonable cap on the rate of the level 9. It gets very, very high very quickly, as I'm sure you guys have, if you've played in the models at all. So this model, you can see going from level 1 starts out very cheap. but it's also very low rate. You're getting five of whatever Alchemica. This is everything's in FUD for this, but we just for example, the alternate cost that's in FUD, not FUD the Alchemica, but basically the combination of all 4 Alchemica valued in FUD. So for example, Keck would be 2 times 20. So this might be 10 FUD, 0 Keck, whatever. But that's what the total FUD means there. So this alternate rate, you'd be getting basically 5 FUD worth of whatever Alchemica you're mining. So it could be 0.5 Keck, whatever. Could be like 8, I think it'd be 4 or 5 alpha. And the idea there would be you would put this harvester on your parcel and you'd get an ROI very quickly, but the ROI is so low that it would be enticing to look at the level 2 and say, you know what, it's worth it. It's totally worth it to just go up to level 2 and start getting 10 instead of 60. And the days to recoup it are still fairly low. It's only 6 days. I'm going to get that back pretty quickly. And then again, you get to level 3 and you think the same, like it's only 8 days to recoup it. I'm going to get 20 now. It's a kind of a good investment. And basically the idea is to replicate that all the way up to level 7. The level 4, 5, and 6, again, if we double the alternate rate every level, it gets out of control very quickly. It goes from 40 to 80 to 160, 320, and then you're basically at 1,000 at level 9 or even higher. And that's just not really that sustainable for the economy. We feel like that's too fast of a rate. So we kind of capped it internally at 600 to 700 for what a level 9 should be giving you. That could be too low, it could be too high, debatable. But basically level 4, 5, and 6, you're in this kind of grinding point where it's kind of like it's like a tunnel and you see the light on the edge of the tunnel is level 7, 8, 9, was like, wow, these are very, very nice rates, but I need to grind through 4, 5, and 6 to get to them. And then once you get to level 7, you can see the days to recoup actually starts going down rather than up. You go from 21 days to 18 to basically 15 days for your level 9. And we did the calculations of, we can't look at the harvesters in a kind of in isolation. We need to look at them in context with the altar, with the reservoir. And so when you add in the altar, it ends up being pretty optimal in terms of ROI to go for a lot of level 8s, quite a few level 8. This is for a spacious, not a humble or reasonable, but for a spacious. The optimal play is basically get 4 to 5 level 8s. Maybe if you're trying to go faster and get more glitter, then you'd really, really definitely want to go for level 9. But your ROI will be a bit faster, but your ROI is going to be lower, but you're getting your glitter faster. You're getting Alchemica faster. And that's kind of the theme of how we designed the system to begin with. It's this tension between how fast do you want to get your money, or are you comfortable with a long ROI? Basically, how fast do you want to clean out your parcel? Do you want to spend 3 years cleaning it out? Okay, then just get a bunch of level 1s or level 2s. Or do you want to farm as fast as you can? In that case, you're going to want to get level 8s and 9s. So as far as the build time, in the current version, I believe build time for level 1 is 0, and I think we'll definitely need to boost that and make that at least a couple hours. We did want to have it so a new player, someone who's just bought a humble, they can come on, they can feel like, oh, I'm building, I'm earning already. It's happening so quickly. We don't want to lose that magic of feeling like you're kind of already in the ecosystem. So we don't want to make it too long, but it is probably necessary to have some sort of build time for a level 1, because then you have some opportunity cost. You'd say, okay, I could build another level 1 or I could maybe upgrade my current level 1 to level 2 faster. So there's more decision to be made there. But
Yeah,
anyway,
a quick aside on that,
yeah.
that the time we could offer like a first harvester's free build, like on time block, so that way the new user gets the first one in for free, and then not free cost, but free with time block, and then the second one would be the 4 hours.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that could be. That's a good idea.
I like how the
So
I was just gonna say, I like
Yeah,
how
go
the
ahead.
grindy period is right in the middle there, followed by the actual reward. There's a bit of an incentive there to get through that grinding period. If you think those rewards for the higher level harvesters is going to be relevant to you, and it allows you to make a little bit more decisions there rather than having a linear progression right to level 9 and having everybody's have their sights set on level 9. Each kind of division could be relevant to a certain type of player. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, there are a couple limitations to these specific numbers. We did run them with the humble and reasonable, and the ROI is definitely lower. For the spacious, I believe it came out to about 400 to 500% over 1 year period. So if you play essentially the optimal way and you're able to get your installations upgraded as fast as possible and you get to level 8 as fast as possible, it is possible to clean out a spacious parcel in about a year playing with like optimal play. For and within that period you can basically get a 4 to 500% ROI. For reasonables and especially humble, the ROI is lower, primarily because of the cost of the altar. The altar is it's probably almost not too late at this point, but we'd have to move very quickly if we wanted to reduce the altar costs, especially for the lower levels. But that's one of the main ROI kind of suckers of the lower levels, and so we have been quite against adding in any sort of limitation on how many harvesters you can build on a spacious, because we believe it would be viewed as kind of a tax on spacious owners, like an artificial limitation. But with this model I just proposed here, it would be a little bit more reasonable to add in that some sort of limitation, because otherwise the ROI of the spacious it's so much higher than a humble or a reasonable.
So
Definitely, if you guys could run, like, feel free to take these numbers, put them into your models that you have, and see what comes out. It'd be definitely interesting to look at that.
yeah, I did actually. I just put it in on the second tab. It's the bottom one in the second tab. Um, it does sort of squish the relationship between the two, between the higher levels and lower levels, but it still presents the same basic dilemma of having decreasing returns. One other thing I want to point out, maybe we haven't talked about yet, was one of the ways when I messed with this model to get it to work was really by greatly increasing the build times over what was there. So whereas right now I think we have like 11 days to upgrade from a level 8 to a level 9, I have it at 45 days just in this example. Again, that could be played with, but perhaps that is something that helps. I know you mentioned the harvest rate of a level 8, level 9 harvester. Again, this were my very quick, just kind of back in the napkin rough ends. And the model we were looking at does have a maximum harvest rate per day of 624 as opposed to I forget what, but 700 in what you just proposed. So but in the mid level it does get chunkier more quickly. So again, I think
But
that
you're like looking at your costs. I mean, 1,000 FUD. Would that be 1,000 FUD? So this would
it would be
be
all FUD. It would be like 500 FUD and
by the
250
ratio.
FOMO or something like that. Yeah.
It does feel a little bit expensive if I'm a new entrant on my humble and I'm just looking at they want me to pay 1,000. It's gonna one thing I do like about my model here is that you can basically compound your gains much more quickly. Like the game loop is
Yeah.
faster. You're gonna be more excited and possibly more addictive with the lower prices for the level 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Yep. It's a
Right.
very good return. I mean, saying like you're going to have, again, your real return is going to be less, but having 7.5, this new model you put out would be 7.5 times your investment
Mhm.
back within 1 month. That's pretty good. Even after the spillover, even if you have, a healthy amount of spillover, you're gonna make your investment back very quickly. But that same kind of excitement is the same thing that's creating the dilemma, which is that like level 1 harvesters are so good that
Mm.
why do I want to upgrade from a level 1 to a level 2 and get a third of the return? And when
Well,
I like the idea of going through kind of a hump and then coming out the other side, but where you at level 7, 8, 9, but where you come out the other side is still worse off than the investment you made in lower level harvesters.
Well, I think the kind of my feeling and intuition there is that this is a farming game, and who knows? I mean, there will be lots of efforts on our side and then the DAO side to give utility to these Alchemica and prevent them from just being farmed to zero. But at the end of the day, it still is a farming game, and so it's very possible that you could see your kind of returns starting out very, very good, and then slowly as people harvest and sell, farm and dump, that who knows like how it'll be in 2 years, 2 or 3 years. So I feel like there's an opportunity cost if you just go with a level 1 and you just say la vie forever. Then like if you're comfortable spending 3 years to clean out a spacious, or how probably much longer than that actually, 3 years just to clean out a humble, that's a pretty big opportunity cost in terms of what you could have made if you sped things up a little bit. And that's kind of what we're thinking in terms of why we think it's okay to have kind of depreciating, not like they definitely, the rewards are depreciating to some extent, but uh it's very difficult to balance it and actually have exponentially better rewards as you're going up, but with the cost not also like exponentially going up as well.
I think there's something to be said about having reasonably priced, entry level points for especially humbles and reasonables, because those are going to be kind of marketed that way for a player who doesn't have any land or might not have a lot of capital to invest. They're going to be going for that the humble parcel most likely to begin with. And I guess it's important to just make sure that that's a enjoyable experience for those guys.
I've got a comment.
Yeah, I feel. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, good. So usually in like yield farming for LP and stuff like that, they have a lockup of the shitcoin, the yield token, in order to give boosts, and so it's an incentive for people to farm and lock up in order to increase yield of their initial stake or compound. I'm wondering if that would help with kind of price stability if the owner had to lock up some of the Alchemica earned in order to level up or maintain the yield.
Right. We haven't really envisioned having forced lockups like that, but the lockup that is most enticing would be to LP and to earn glitter token, which will speed up your process in the game. I'm not sure having a forced lockup would be productive. I'm always against kind of forcing players to do certain behaviors, because there could be a lot of we don't really know how much friction it adds to the whole process. And for a new player coming to the ecosystem, I always look at lockups very, very seriously, if I see, oh, you need to lock up your tokens for 4 years, like I'm never gonna join that ecosystem. I never stake in any ecosystem that forces me to lock stuff up for a while. I want to be able to move my
Yeah,
money around. So
I understand that, and usually the ecosystems are junk, and there's no reason to have a long-term outlook on them. Definitely, I think probably the longest one is Curve with their voting token and stuff like that. But anyway,
yeah, the
I was
VE
just
stuff is interesting, and I'm doing quite a bit of research on the VE. I think it could be interesting for Glitter. In our initial staking contract, we probably won't have any sort of VE stuff because it adds a lot more complexity to the drafting of the contract. But I can definitely see a future version where locking up for longer could mint Glitter faster for you, some sort of VE. But there won't be any
Well,
voting privileges for the Alchemica probably, so it would just be
what
more of
about
like a lockup.
what about a kind of a deposit in the harvester and the reservoir? And so not necessarily a lockup, but yes, you would have to destroy it in order to get the deposit out. But um, anyway, it's just a thought.
I mean, I
Hey
feel like
guys,
they're locking up their tokens when they buy the installation to begin with. Like it's already kind of a sunk cost.
Yeah, true. All right, thanks.
I wanted to ask a bit of a different question. We've spent so much energy focusing on the harvesters themselves. Has anyone looked at the economics of some of these other installations? One that jumps out for me is the maker itself. What I'm seeing right now, maker costs level 1 to level 9. It costs about 22,000 ghost to build. So I'm not sure where or how that would play out, if anyone would be willing to take that grind, or if something like a maker's worth looking at in more detail. I know in the beginning of the discussion we were talking about using makers to potentially cap the quantity of harvesters being built in the land, or bringing some more power to them as well. So has anyone looked at those numbers on other installations?
We're definitely have been evaluating each of the costs again, and if we significantly change the harvester, definitely would be worth looking at the others, excluding the altar because we're so close to that. It's a bit difficult to change the altar at this point unless there's really very quick action and an overwhelming consensus that the altar needs to be significantly changed. But I personally don't. I think the altar is probably in a fairly good spot. I think the altar could maybe go down a little bit for a level 9, but that's pretty much the only change I would make. To the maker, we have a little bit more time, and we could definitely reevaluate the cost of that based on the utility.
Cool. Yeah,
Another
yeah, go on.
I was going to say another potential change. I think you mentioned it a little earlier. Could be currently the reservoir is linked to spill rate and spill radius, but we could potentially add spill rate to the harvester and remove it from the reservoir and just have spill radius for the reservoir and spill rate for the harvester. That would also be pretty interesting.
So how would that flow? Like the harvesters, as they're pumping the Alchemica, would spill also
No, it
potentially?
wouldn't really change. It would just be all this is happening on chain, like all of the calculation. So really it wouldn't really change anything except that right now spill rate and spill radius are both linked to your reservoir. Whereas uh, if we change it to spill rate, it would just be linked to the installation for the harvester instead. And so when you equip the harvester, your spill rate would go up or down based on whichever one you have equipped.
Does the harvester and reservoir need to be the same level, or can they be mismatched?
They can actually be different levels.
Yeah, I think that affects the
So
rates
maybe
at which they get filled. So I guess somebody put out some really good information. I don't have the chart on hand, but how many hours it takes based on the level of harvester you have to fill a reservoir at that, you know, certain level. And that if someone does have that, that would be interesting to see. But I do like the idea of spill, you know, integrating like a spill rate or a radius into the harvesters. Is there, you know, is there a benefit for one or the other to either integrate a spill rate into a harvester versus a spill radius into a harvester? Like, which one would you feel would fit better, I guess, for the harvester if we were to adopt a mechanic like that?
We did think about it a little bit. I think it probably would make sense for spill rate to go to harvester. But again, it's not going to really change the gameplay. You're still going to be claiming from the reservoir, and that's that at that point that's when spill rate would come into effect. It won't be happening like all the time.
Okay, yeah,
The,
that's
the
good to know.
radius is interesting because if the radius is small, you can just wall everything in and then not necessarily upgrade because you're containing. If the spill rate is wide, then maybe it wouldn't fall in your walls, and so it'd be more incentive to upgrade to get less spillage.
Yeah, the radius we're going to be publishing those numbers fairly soon. I can just say for the altar, the radius is quite large, especially for a level 1. It's quite large. And then for the reservoir, starts fairly large, but does get down to a pretty good level, especially for Keck and Fud, which are kind of a bit heavier in our lore. But yeah, if we make the radius too small, then it's very easy to wall it all in. Kind of defeats the purpose of the radius, but at the same time, it also incentivizes having strong walls, which is a pretty cool behavior.
Do you see heavy Alchemica destroying your walls if it spills over and hits it?
I don't think so. Haven't really thought about that.
But that would be interesting. Also, you would want to reduce spillover, so you keep your walls.
I see Hardcore here as put his little sticky note on the Miro board asking, can you give a vague estimate of like the base radius that someone could expect for you know, an initial harvester or reservoir, however we decide to do it.
Yeah, so we're talking probably 800 to 1,000 gachis radius for a level 1.
Okay, yeah,
Which is for context. For context, a spacious is 32 by 64, so could be about 16 spacious for level 1. And it does get considerably smaller as you upgrade. For the altar, it's quite a big radius. Like we're talking potentially I have to check, but I believe the level 1 altar is about 7 or 8,000 gachi radius. So it's pretty big.
Wow. Yeah.
Is it gonna spill over outside of the citadel? Or would it hit
it'll
the
be
walls
barred
of the
by
citadel?
I think if it's inside the citadel, it'll probably stay because we'd have the force field.
Oh, so maybe parcels on the outskirts might actually fill up.
Yeah, I think our algorithm will probably calculate it and probably just send it back. I don't know if it would all line up at the end. Probably wouldn't do that. So yeah, so 16 spaces for a level 1. Again, the kind of the fun of this game is that part of your yield will be dumping into other people's parcels, and their yield will be dumping into your parcel. So that's kind of one of the key ideas. And so we wanted to have big enough radius that it enables that. At the same time, you should be rewarded for leveling all your reservoir all the way up to level 9. And so there will be a considerable benefit for that.
I like that, upgrading these structures and getting that radius in less than 1,000 gotchis is going to be a very strong incentive for people who, own estates maybe and want to reel that radius in a little bit closer in between the fences, right? So I think that's going to be really interesting to see.
Well, I'm gonna have to get off here, getting pretty late, but
Could you give us a
so
quick summary? Dan, from your perspective, can you give us a quick summary of where we're at with the harvesters and reservoirs? Kind of
so
summary.
yeah. Well, we have the original model, we have the model that Mikey has done, we have the model I proposed today, and I would say everyone just go have a look at that. See, what I like to do is kind of try to imagine what I would do as a player. What's the optimal play that I would do? Calculate the numbers. I think you'll find that most likely the optimal play has kind of shifted up to level 8, 7 or 8, maybe even 9, depending on your goals. And so that it does help achieve that goal of giving players a sense of completion, that they have finally gotten the level 9, which is, I think from a gameplay perspective, it is quite nice.
There's
But
one
there may
more.
be some other objectives that we're not achieving.
Yeah. There's one more thing
Maybe,
here. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
maybe level not. I was just saying maybe some extra kind of flexing. Maybe level 9 installations go gold. They just like it'd be something kind of fun. We could think about it.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring up one more, thing that we might want to discuss. I know Coder Dan, you have to go, but there's this good conversation going on around estates, and some people have some really good ideas about ways to link these parcels together. So I don't know if that's something we want to discuss today here, or if that's something we're gonna be tabling for the next discussion. We could still go over some of the details if you guys would like.
Yeah, that's a whole different discussion.
Okay.
Pretty much the rules are published. If there's any rules that we need to update, feel free. But pretty much what we publish is what we're planning to build out.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good.
Cool, guys. Well, let's definitely keep it going in the discussion forum here. Lots of good input, and we will. As far as altar, we might take the initiative to. We're going to be reevaluating the level 9 altar to see if it's maybe a little bit too expensive. So that might come down a little bit, but most likely we're very close to launching the altars, so not much we can do there. But I think they are at a fairly good price point as far as the utility they give. But we will be continuing to reevaluate the harvester, the reservoir, and the maker over the next couple weeks here. And if necessary, we can get a sig prop and then a core prop to update the Bible with those big changes. So everyone,
Thank you very much,
have
Dan.
a happy Mother's Day. Tell your mother you love her. I'm gonna go call my mom now. So
Thanks for the
have a great
reminder.
Sunday.
Yeah. Great reminder, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Enjoy your Mother's
All
Day.
right.
Thank you for sharing your insights and hanging out with us here.
Yep.
Later.
Hey, Hefe, what's the conversation about estates?
And so there was just some stuff put on the Miro board here. I don't know if you guys want to discuss about it. Notorious BTC also had some input about. I guess I can read. I guess I can read it here. So Zygo. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you drop that link to the mirror board?
Yeah, for sure. Let me grab that. Weekly hangout meetings. Yeah, okay, so I dropped the link there. Oh yeah, Hardcore got it up there as well. And so, we don't have to get too deep into a discussion, but I thought some of these, some of these points made here could be interesting just to discuss in the background. And if there's anything pertinent that comes out of it, maybe we bring it up during next week's meeting. So I guess Zygo starts off with there's a problem with proposed estate building mechanics, and the problem has to do with linking parcels and how it's restricted by the presence of an upgraded lodge, and saying how that's basically quite expensive to link parcels with little benefit, I guess, unless you have a very large estate. And so how can we bring more value to those players who have smaller estates, or maybe even like a humble estate with two parcels linked together,
Yeah, that kind of makes sense. So for one of my estates, I have a couple of spacious that are linked by a humble, and so it's kind of gated. It's like, do I want to spend the money to upgrade the lodge kind of multiple times in order to grab these other spacious so I have a bigger estate? And I don't know why someone would build an estate out of humbles or reasonables because of the cost. Is there any ideas of kind of mitigating that cost for smaller parcels?
Well, see, for smaller parcels, one of the main things I noticed is for visibility, people will be able to see that your parcels are linked as an estate. And so I wonder if we have to ask and see if that plays in with visibility on the map, visibility as a gotchi is walking by it, get some more context around the visibility aspect, because I feel like that would be a benefit to linking two small parcels together, is now you have a more visible, you have more visibility for, if you have an event or a gathering, for example.
Well, if we can take the images as what it's going to look like in the Bible, there's just like a little blue line around it.
Yeah,
I mean, you thinking something like that, or something maybe a little cooler?
I mean, I thought it'd be something a little cooler if it was just like a little symbol or something on a parcel as you're walking around. Maybe on the mini map you see it, and then it would be a little bit more identifiable that way. It's kind of like with the Alchemica boosts. If you have a parcel with an Alchemica boost and it's kind of in a unique location, it does give a reference point for people to link up there. If you were to, it's kind of an intangible value because it really doesn't actually offer any extra monetary value, but I feel like there is a value there with having that visibility. So I guess Zygo has some pretty good suggestions, I guess, between breaking the link between lodges and estates. And it goes on to say the benefits to having an estate are so small, especially if you don't have a large estate, if it's just a couple parcels, small ones linked together, that there's really no real need to link the estate with the lodge level. And also expanding on the lodge's primary use case is communal channeling for guilds, which justifies the high price. But plenty of people have two or more adjacent parcels, like myself, and they'd like to link them without becoming a guild and paying a huge Alchemica price. So I wasn't actually aware of this, that you'd actually have to upgrade your lodge to link. I guess the amount of parcels you can link together is tied to the lodge, right?
Yeah, and if you want to go, I think higher than 8 or something, or 7, you need to go to a level 9 lodge, which is like crazy expensive. But it gives you way more parcels that you can link together. And I don't know if it's worth the cost. Kind of the cool thing that I like is I can build walls around a larger area with an estate, and then the benefit of clearing out all my reservoirs, fewer actions, I think is enticing. And then what we talked about today, if I could wall in an estate that has Alchemica deposits and maybe some bubble ups, but but that's kind of unknown. I don't know. Do you see any other benefits of an estate?
Well, yeah, I mean the other benefit I saw, and this might apply more to larger estates, not so much a small humble parcel, two humbles linked together. But if you have, for example, like 4 or 5 spaciouses or 4 or 5 reasonables even linked together, and you're able to wall that in, going back to that conversation Dan just had with us, there's going to be Alchemica just dropping randomly and sporadically kind of all over the map. And so if you have a walled in parcel, it's going to be a huge deterrent to other gotchis coming in there and trying to, retrieve this free loose Alchemica. And so what you essentially end up with, if you have a meaningfully large enough parcel or estate, is it'll essentially create like a net where it may not even be worth someone's time to try and break through that wall when there's already other Alchemica lying around that they might want to collect.
Well, you can also wall in your individual parcels. The benefit of walling in a whole estate is you get all the gaps in between the parcels.
Yeah, so I guess in that scenario, it's slightly increasing the square footage, I guess, of collecting area. And then the other side benefit was if you do have a large amount of reservoirs, when your operations become more established, and this might only apply to like reasonables and up maybe, but you'll be able to drain your reservoirs simultaneously in one transaction. So to be able to batch drain reservoirs might actually be a benefit, a pretty big benefit in the long run.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I would like to see more benefit with estates, either being able to, put down, tiles or images or whatever that encompass the whole area. Hopefully that's an option. But I think more advantage needs to be given to estate building.
Yeah, I feel you on that. I mean, I like the idea of having that the gap space in between actually be usable space as well, because I know Dan was saying that that wouldn't be really usable space in between a linked parcel. Like, so if you had your two humbles linked together, that gap in between, it'd be walled off, and the utility of that little gap area would be, you have a little bit extra Alchemica collecting space, but it wouldn't really add any extra value to the land itself.
Yeah, totally agree. I think it's kind of a flex having a big estate.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if it's something that people want to, keep discussing and getting more into it, I know Dan said that it's already kind of been established how the estates are going to be built, but maybe there is some room for discussion there. I know there's been, there's a pretty good conversation here on the Miro board about it. So, definitely check that out. If you do have anything you want to add to this conversation here, it's definitely something we can probably bring up for the next gathering. And I'm going to dig more into this eye traits discussion and try and get some more color, some more background on it. And so maybe I'll have some more, I can contribute a little bit something more. But even that, it sounds like is getting very well established. Like we're moving towards consensus with the eye traits, which is, it's exciting because it's a one kind of hang up right now that we have, because the rest of the traits have been figured out. The trait mappings are something I think the majority of people are happy with now, and it's just a matter of looking at these eye traits. And I really like that idea of the dyes and adding that little extra customization or flex to be having those really rare eye shapes and colors. So it'd be interesting to see what we reach consensus on there. But yeah, I'll do some more digging myself to get some better understanding, some more context behind it.
I think laser eyes is getting a lot of attention.
Oh man, ever since I saw that that one teaser trailer they did a while ago, with that Gotchi shooting the lasers out of his eyes, or I think it might have been the laser gun. I'm like, laser eyes for sure, laser eyes.
lasers is awesome. I don't know. I mean, that could be uh, so changed up like missile eyes or bullet eye. It could go pretty crazy. Be kind of funny. It would be nice just to have a glow. It would be kind of cool.
Yeah,
I like
exactly.
the idea of the aura, especially like the godlike auras, and I'd like to see mythicals get kind of a smaller aura themselves, but having an aura of the eyes is kind of interesting idea. But lasers for the win.
Yeah, I'm stoked to see what comes out of it. I see Quincy's asking, are you clear to set the core prop on solo channeling? Could you elaborate, friend? I'm not really sure what you're referring to there, actually. Core prop on solo channeling.
Yeah, I think is he talking about it didn't meet quorum, but it might have met quorum if Snapshot had didn't have some little issue. And I think Dan's going to look into the PR that they proposed, that they submitted to Snapshot. So there could have been some issues there.
Yeah, I guess maybe we gotta just confirm with Dan that that's all good to go, and then yeah, I think it should be all right. Other than that, I don't have anything else here for today. I think we've hit on all the points, and this mirror board is just a great tool. I really love playing around with it. Thank you, Hardcore, for setting this up. And we'll do this again. I'll get a recording up here and have it archived somewhere for people to reference. Other than that, is there anything else you got, Tommy Gacci?
No, nothing. I appreciate being able to be on the stage. Thank you very much.
Of course. It's always a pleasure. And hope you guys have a great
Yo,
Mother's Day. Oh,
Jeff,
hey.
real quickly.
Yeah.
Say, just really quickly, I just wanted to draw some attention. Harambe's running a raffle right now for a reasonable parcel. I'm also running a raffle, but mine is like much further in the future. So check it out. It's going to be helping one of their friends with a nerve disorder. So there's going to be a tweet going out soon. I'm going to retweet it. I believe the donation is 7 Matic or something like that, 14 Keck. He had different stuff up there, but more information will come out. If you have a minute, just check it out and help one of our friends out.
Oh yeah, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we'll definitely get the word out on that. I'll retweet that out. And yeah, other than that, I hope you guys have a great Mother's Day. Enjoy your weekend. We're gonna have a gotchi space tonight. We might go over some of this stuff, but we usually keep it casual. So you're welcome to come join us, come hang out, and yeah, it should be a good time. So yeah, take care, friends, and we'll talk again.